Hello, everyone. Welcome to today's lesson. This lesson consists of two parts. It is a reading lesson and a vocabulary lesson. Specifically, it's really looking at how you can use reading to build your vocabulary, and we're going to kind of walk through that step by step. And I'm going to show you some articles, highlight some words, and create a vocabulary list, which is something that all of you could do at home. So today's topic, we're going to be talking about vaccines. I try to choose, when I do these lessons, I try to choose a topic that I think is relevant, that people are discussing, that is current. And of course, this is something that I think we are all aware of. It's happening all over the world. And I think it is very super important that we look at that. And I want to teach you some words and phrases that are related to vaccines. I will tell you, I am somebody, I have not received a vaccine just yet. We are on a waiting list, but we are going to get one as soon as we possibly can. I truly believe in vaccines. I trust the science, and I think that is the best way to kind of move past this whole COVID crisis that has engulfed the world. But this lesson, again, is primarily just trying to show you some words that are related to this. If you want to read more about it, or perhaps you're having a conversation, you're discussing it with somebody else, these are some useful words that you should know for your comprehension, but they're also good for you to use your vocabulary as well. And the organization that I'm going to highlight today is Doctors Without Borders. We've made a $50 donation to them. If some of you would like to make that as well, that's awesome. If not, that's no problem, but I'd still encourage you to go to the website, learn more about them. They do great work, but I will talk about that at the end of the lesson. I want to say a quick hello to, so many members. Gertrudis, Lolly, hello, good to see you. Vicky, great to have you here. Takayo, hi. Angela, Esther, Ten Kritika, Andre, thank you guys for joining me. I will try to glance at the chat from time to time. I'm going to be moving around on quite a few different screens between the articles and the vocabulary list, so I won't be able to read as much as I usually do in there. But let's just go ahead and begin with the first article. All of these articles that we're looking at are pretty relevant. You can see this article right here from CNN, and it's from May 13th. The title of this article, because I know I'm kind of blocking it right now, is that this is what vaccine inequality looks like. So I didn't choose these articles necessarily because of what they're trying to say. They're very different articles. I was just trying to find some articles that had words and phrases, especially at the beginning, that I think were relevant, that you're likely to find in other articles that you may be reading that are related to this topic of vaccines. So before I pick out some of the words, I'm going to just read this part right here. And then we're going to go back through and we're going to look at some of the vocabulary words. I'm going to create a vocabulary list, and I will also put all of these words down in the description if you would like to review. I will also link these articles if you would like to read the rest of it, because I am just going to read a very short portion of the article. So this is talking about, it says, America has been inching closer to herd immunity, with 17 million more people becoming eligible for a COVID-19 vaccine. CVS pharmacies and some hospitals across the United States will start administering the Pfizer BioNTech shots to 12 to 15-year-olds today, following a recommendation by the U.S. Center for Disease Control and Prevention, CDC. It's yet another major step in America's road out of the pandemic. While severe illness due to COVID-19 is relatively rare among teens, they can still spread the virus, and their inclusion in the vaccination program is key for any hope of achieving herd immunity. But as the focus of the U.S. shifts to inoculating younger people and convincing those who are hesitant to get the shot, much of the rest of the world is struggling to get vaccines, even for those who need them most, including vulnerable people and healthcare workers. So let's start at the beginning up here, and I'll just go through a couple of words because I know which ones I've highlighted. We saw this phrase twice in the article. herd immunity. I think this is something, if you're talking about the COVID-19 pandemic, vaccines, this is a phrase that people often talk about. Eligible is another word that I want to highlight and talk about, as well as administer. So it's talking about more people becoming eligible for the vaccine, and this pharmacy, CVS, is starting to administer the vaccine. So let's go over to the vocabulary list. I'm going to bounce back and forth. Whoops, that's not the vocabulary list. Here is the vocabulary list right here. So I mentioned the first one, herd immunity. This is talking about, I got all of these, most of the meanings of these words and phrases come from Cambridge Online Dictionary. That is kind of my dictionary of choice, online dictionary of choice for finding words. I think they give meanings and definitions using simple words, so it's easy to understand. Herd immunity is talking about a situation in which a disease cannot spread through a group of people because enough of them are immune. So if enough people receive the vaccine, enough people are immune, then you can achieve herd immunity. Eligible, just in the article they talked about more people are becoming eligible for the vaccine. This is, I think, a statement that people will use no matter where you are in the world. And you're talking about, well, who is eligible, having the necessary qualities or satisfying the necessary conditions. So, for example, I think with this COVID vaccine, in most countries around the world, I imagine that the people who become eligible first would be those who, the older population, the elderly, would be eligible first because that's who that's who we want to protect. That are most susceptible to the virus. So the next one I said to administer. I chose this because if we're talking about just a vaccine or a shot, this is a verb that you would use to administer a shot or administer the vaccine to cause someone to receive something. You could just use the verb receive as well. That's perfectly fine. But I think administering is like the person giving it. So I would say, for example, when I go and get the vaccine, I would receive the vaccine, and the healthcare worker, the nurse, the doctor would administer the vaccine. They're the ones who are giving it. They would administer it. Let's go back to the article. There are a few more words that I wanted to point out from here. And it was talking about, well, I did a lesson before talking all about the pandemic, but I wanted to include it again because if we're talking about vaccines, this is a very common word that you would come across, people talking about the global pandemic and the spread of the virus. This is an important verb. You see this word again, herd immunity. It's coming up once more. And then there was another word down here. It's talking about the US shifts to inoculating younger people. To inoculate is another verb, which I also highlighted on our vocabulary list. So I told you that we're talking about the pandemic. I said it's a global pandemic, the COVID-19. This is a disease existing in almost all of an area. So I mentioned the adjective global before it, a global pandemic, in which case we're talking about COVID, which is existing across the globe. Spread is also used when talking about viruses, disease. It just means to spread is to affect. Why can I highlight all of this? To affect more and more people. And you would say that the disease is spreading, the virus is spreading, it's moving around, it's infecting more people. A very common verb, I think, that you would use to talk about a situation like that. So this is a very useful verb. And inoculate. It said that the US is changing to inoculating younger people. And to inoculate means you're giving somebody a weak form of a disease, usually by injection, as a protection against that disease. And you would inoculate somebody. So you are giving them The disease, like I said, usually it's talking about somebody would administer a shot, and it would protect you against the disease. To inoculate, another useful verb if talking about health, disease, medicines, vaccines, a verb that you will come across quite often. All right, so this was the first article that I wanted to look at, and we have, there's one more word that I think, where was it in the article? Vulnerable. So it was talking down here, okay, talking about vulnerable people and healthcare workers. I mentioned before, that was the word I was looking for. The people all over the world protecting the elderly because they are most vulnerable, and as well as healthcare workers, they're getting more exposure to the virus. So vulnerable means that you able to be easily physically, emotionally, or mentally hurt. So you could use it in a variety of contexts. In this case, they're talking about somebody who is vulnerable to the disease. That I guess it would be like more physically, that you're vulnerable, you're more likely to get the disease. You could say you are vulnerable. So again, it could be used in a variety of ways. Let's look at the next article. So that was an article, overall it was talking about, I think, the vaccine program, and the title was about U.S. inequality. I will link it in the description if you want to just read the entire article. Again, we're just looking at a small portion of these articles. The next one is over here, okay? So the title is UNICEF calls on UK to give 20% of vaccines to other countries. Children's Charity urges UK to set example and start sharing jabs with lower income countries from June. So if we go down here, again, I'm just going to read a few paragraphs, and then we'll look at some words. I'm going to come back to the words we already talked about. And like I told you, this is a great way to build your vocabulary, because what you're going to end up seeing is those words are going to be used in this article and subsequent articles. So that's why I said, if you're trying to learn about a topic and you learn a new word related to that topic, don't just read one article. Try to find another. Because the more you continue to come across the same words again and again and again, the more likely you are to remember the word, to learn it, and then it's going to become a part of your active memory. So this article, it says the UK should commit to giving 20% of its vaccines to other countries that are in urgent need of them as early as June, according to UNICEF, which says the UK will still have enough to vaccinate every adult by the end of July. The Children's Charity estimates the UK will have enough spare doses this year to fully vaccinate a further 50 million people around the world, and urges the government to set an example to the G7 by starting to share them next month. Vaccinating the populations of other countries is the only way to ensure new coronavirus variants do not spread, it says. UNICEF made its call before the G7 summit in the UK next month, and as France announced it would donate up to 5% of its vaccine stocks to COVAX, the UN-backed initiative to get vaccines to lower-income countries. The one thing I want to point out in this article right away, we're talking about vaccines. You know what a vaccine is. It's a noun. I wanted to show you how it's used other parts of speeches. So you see vaccine being used here as a noun. And then we can also use it as a verb, to vaccinate other adults. It's used here as a gerund at the beginning of a sentence, vaccinating the populations of other countries. So a lot of these words, it's another good way to build your vocabulary if you're not just thinking about how else the word might be used as a noun, as an adjective, or even as a verb. Great way to build your vocabulary. The two words that I wanted to point out in this article right here, doses, because talking about vaccines, that is a word that will come up talking about, well, how many doses did this country receive, or how many doses are people getting? In this case, they're talking about spare doses, extra ones that they can donate. And then the other word's coronavirus variants. This is another common word. If you're talking about the situation that's going on, you may hear this word being used quite often. So let's look at those two words. So if we go to the vocabulary list over here, looking at doses. Doses refers to a measured amount of something such as medicine. And you might hear people talk about like, well, 1 dose, 2 dose, 3 doses. You can use it talking about all kinds of medicine, like if you are taking some medicine to help you sleep at night, and it might tell you to take 2 doses, which is the measured amount. In this case, when they're talking about doses of the vaccine, I believe they're talking just like 1 shot. 1 shot of the vaccine, like 1 dose of it. And then variance means something that is slightly different from other similar things. And they referred to the coronavirus variants, which means that the original coronavirus has slightly changed. And if it slightly changes, then that becomes a variant, a coronavirus variant. And there are several variants around the world. And I think that's something else that they're testing, is how effective are these vaccines against some of these other variants. So another very common word if we're talking about COVID and the situations that's happening around the world and vaccines. Let's look at the next article. I'm going to keep moving through these. I know see some people conversing in the chat. The next article is about, well, there's only a couple words that I wanted to highlight. It's saying, the title is Anti-Vaxxers Aren't the Cause of America's Dropping Vaccine Rates. This fact is crucial to getting the U.S. vaccination campaign back on track. I'm going to come back to the first word because I wanted to tell you what anti-vaxxer means, or what that is. It's a word that you may have heard already. And just look at the first paragraph. It says, America's COVID-19 vaccine rollout has dwindled in recent weeks, plummeting from a previous high of nearly 3.4 million doses administered a day on average in April to around 2.2 million a day this week. I'm not going to look at more. It then goes into an analogy about what's going on. And then down here, it kind of talks a little bit more about, well, why this is happening. I really just wanted to point out 2 words in this article, which is the first one talking about anti-vaxxers, and then the other one is rollout. And as you can see, I talked about words that you would see again and again as we go through this. Right here, we just talked about doses, 3.4 million doses. They're referring to doses of the vaccine administered. When they're giving something, somebody's going to receive it, the vaccine. So those are 2 words that we just talked about, 3.4 million doses administered. But let's look at those 2 words, anti-vaxxer and rollout. If we go back to our vocabulary list and look what we have. So an anti-vaxxer is just somebody who does not agree with vaccinating people. And what I would say is that I know there are some people out there that I think in the first article, it referred to some people being, well, hesitant, that maybe they're unsure. If somebody, I think, is unsure, then I don't know if I would refer to them as an anti-vaxxer. An anti-vaxxer is a person who just does not agree with it. They think it's, for some reason, that it's dangerous, or they don't believe that people should get vaccines. Then you could call them an anti-vaxxer. Often, I think there's so much bad information surrounding this that I think a lot of people end up reading, and then they become more part of that anti-vaxxer community. But speaking of vaccines, I told you this is something that I think all around the world, in every country, there might be a group of people that are like this, that are against vaccines, and you could say they are anti-vaxxers. Anti, that prefix right there, just means against. So against vaccines is what it means. Rollout is another common word talking about these vaccines because each country is rolling out their own vaccination program, and the rollout is the act of making something available for the first time. So you have this program, you're starting it for the first time, you would refer to it as like the rollout, the noun, the rollout. All right, let's look at, I have one more article for you, and then I want to talk to you a little bit about Doctors Without Borders. The next article, and I have a few more words, is this one. It says why Japan has been slow to roll out vaccinations. And again, I know I'm blocking that first part, but yes, it says, there we go. Why has Japan been slow to roll out vaccinations? What I would tell you to do, take notice of the words that we've already learned. And I'm going to highlight those. Even that first one, I talked about the rollout of these vaccines. They're using it right now as a phrasal verb, to roll out vaccinations. The meaning is the same, that you are making something available for the first time. But one is a noun, the other one, this case, is a phrasal verb. So let's go down here. I'm just going to read a couple of paragraphs and then again, see, we've already talked about several words. See if you can pick up on the ones that we've already discussed throughout the lesson. I told you, if you read similar articles, you're going to end up coming across the same vocabulary words again and again. It's a great way to build your vocabulary. So this is saying, Japan's rollout of COVID-19 vaccines began belatedly in mid-February, months behind the United States and many other countries. Officials blamed a shortage of Pfizer vaccine from Europe as the main culprit in the delay. But 3 months later, with shipments stabilized and officials attempting to accelerate vaccinations, Japan remains one of the world's least protected. Officials say there is a critical shortage of trained staff to give shots. Despite Prime Minister Yoshihide Suga's pledge to have all eligible people fully vaccinated by the end of September, some officials say it could take until next year. It will be impossible for Japan to achieve protective herd immunity in the 2 months before the Tokyo Olympics are to begin. So I think this article was kind of written in the context of Japan is supposed to host the Summer Olympics, and this poses an issue right now for the country. We talked about rollout. You saw in the title it was used as a phrasal verb. Here, again, it's being used as a noun. They're making these vaccines available for the first time. Belatedly, I didn't add that to the list because all it means is something happens late. It's happening late. You could say it's belated. Oftentimes, I think people might use that to wish someone a belated birthday, would be an example. I wanted to talk about, there's a couple words from here. Speaking of vaccines, shortage is one of the words that I wanted to highlight because I think some countries are experiencing a shortage of vaccines. And the next word that I wanted to talk about, here it is, they use shortage again, was this one. Oh, wait. I meant to read this last part down here. But just to go through that other paragraph, we talked about eligible people, that they meet the necessary requirements, herd immunity, they're using that one again. And that last paragraph, which I forgot to read, but there's a word in there that I wanted to go over. It's uncertain. Let me make sure you guys can see this. It's uncertain whether Japan's already strained healthcare system can treat extra visitors during the games as it struggles to handle local patients and mass inoculations. So this is the other word that I wanted to point out, strained. If you say that a system is strained, I want to show you what that word means. And we again, in one of the previous articles, we talked about to inoculate. You're giving somebody a weak form of the disease in order to protect them against it. Let's move over to the vocabulary list. I told you those two words. If we're talking about a shortage of something, you're often going to follow it with the preposition of. A shortage. I said some countries are experiencing a shortage of the vaccine. It means a situation in which there's just not enough. And then strained, they talked about the strained, it's already strained healthcare system, that current problems are just making things more difficult. And it's kind of getting difficult to a point that it could become a real big crisis. So if you say that something is strained, it's just really, it's difficult and challenging because the problems keep intensifying, is what I would say. So these are the different articles that I wanted to show you related to vaccines. You can see here this vocabulary list that I put together. I'm leaving these words down in the description below. Also, there are links to the articles as well if you would like to read the rest of them. I am a big advocate for reading in English and just reading more and more. I think it's a great way to build your vocabulary. It's a great way to improve your grammar because you're seeing the correct grammar structure being used. There are so many benefits to reading, so I think it's always great. And one other thing, the last thing that I think you should read and check out is the site, Doctors Without Borders. So even if you're not in a position to make a donation, go check out the website, read about them. It's a great way to, again, build your vocabulary, learn about an organization that's doing some good work. I think so many things that we read about, especially if we're talking about the news, it's typically negative. It's not something that is overly cheerful. So it can be good to read about things that are a little more positive, people doing good work. Doctors Without Borders. It's originally, I think, a French organization. They have offices around the world at this point. And basically they work on different medical projects, helping countries in need that are experiencing some great difficulties. And you can read a lot more about them. It talks a little bit more about some of their ongoing projects right now. Learn about what they do. It's a good organization. So that is the organization that we wanted to highlight in this lesson that is related to vaccines. It's related to the COVID crisis, the global pandemic right now. So wanted to give a big shout out to Doctors Without Borders. Go check out, the link is also down in the description if you want to go read about this. So go check out the website, learn a little bit more about them, practice your reading skills so that you can continue to build your vocabulary. I know that, again, I haven't been able to really pop into the chat too much. I hope that you guys enjoyed the lesson. I hope that you guys learn some new words and phrases. Again, this is a very important topic. It's very relevant because this is going on right now. So it's something that you will read about in English, but you may also be talking about it with your friends and families. So these are good words and phrases to know. Thank you guys so much for joining me. I hope it was useful. Yes, okay, Lolly confirming. Yes, it is a French organization. Excellent. And like I said, I hope you learn some new words and just continue to read, because I think if there's something you enjoy, like a topic, read about it, but read several articles, because you're going to start identifying the same vocabulary word again and again and again. And then suddenly, yes, it's going to be up here in your active memory, and you're going to be able to use that the next time you're writing or having a conversation, and you're actually had to produce the language. Thanks for joining me, Lolly, Vicky. Thanks for being here. Good to see you. Takayo, glad you learned some new words. Juliana, good to see you. Glad you were here. Awesome. Seeing a lot of people who are in the Speak Up course as well. Awesome. Great to see you guys. Gertrudis, thanks for being here. Sarah, Andre, please hello to Brazil. Tankritika, Chimes, Tenten, Eloisa. These are articles. I'll do more of these lessons later on. I like doing these reading vocabulary lessons. It allows us to talk about something current, something relevant, something that I think is important, and then also highlight an organization that we think is doing good work. So I like to make these fundraising videos from time to time. I think it's good. All right. Tankriti, which vaccine did you apply for? We don't know. So the way it works in Hungary, like we've registered, we're waiting, and then they'll call you and then tell you when you're supposed to go in for the vaccine, and then I think at that point you can ask and say, okay, can you tell me which one it is? It Hungary's not in a position where I think you're not allowed to choose, at least as far as I know. But I do want to get it as soon as possible. Kareem, yes, all the best to you as well. Gertrudis, Anastasia, Leo, Alisher, Khaled. Hope you guys enjoy the rest of your weekend, and I will see you next time. So long.